Welcome to another East Tradewinds presentation with Erika Layer from the COO Solution. The following pre-recorded video is being shared with Erika's express permission to showcase her presentation.
For those that I know, it's great to see you all. For those that I don't know, welcome and thanks so much for being here. I hope to meet many of you in the coming days and weeks after this. My name is Erika Lair. I am a fractional COO. So what that means is that I have my own independent consulting practice. So I basically am a small business owner. I work across multiple clients spanning small businesses, early stage startups, and nonprofits, largely in the global health space. My history has largely been in global health, and I have a lot of experience working in the digital health space. And I know that there's many here that I've worked with in the past, so it's good to see you. But basically what it means to have a small business is that I am working across multiple clients in an ongoing capacity. I am managing all of my administrative work. I am managing my business development work. I have to show up visibly, which is why many of you, I think, have seen me on LinkedIn. And so for anybody else who has their own business, you know that there is a huge amount of work that goes into that. And it's very difficult to manage all of this. In the last 3 months, I have seen a shift in how I've been able to do work by leveraging AI. And the changes that I have seen and how that work gets done are significantly greater than anything I have seen in the last 25 years. And that is not an overstatement. I know that there's a lot of hype about AI right now. It has shifted how I think about work, how I approach work, and I really think the outputs of the work that I'm able to produce alongside the quality of the work that I am able to do. I've been having lots of conversations with people over the past weeks. And basically what I'm hearing is very similar from everyone I talk to. And I'm feeling many of these things in the same way. It's that you are anxious, you are hearing all about AI, you feel like you are terribly behind and don't know where to begin. There's a lot of crazy hype out there about how AI can just run your whole business, which anyways, that's another conversation. There's also fear out there about the risks and the security problem and concerns around AI. And I think that leaves everybody in a place where people just don't know where to start. My approach has been to just jump in, to just get started and try things. And it really started about 3 months ago when I sat down with a colleague who's far more technical than I am. This was shortly after Claude released Cowork, for anybody who's familiar. And what has really, the shift that I've been seeing that he showed me and that I have now since taken on is that AI has shifted for me from a tool that I work with, where I chat with, where I have conversations with, where it gives me some ideas and I would copy and paste the outputs into the documents I was working with. AI has shifted now into a tool that I work with and that works for me. And so works with me and for me. And I think increasingly this working for me is what has been happening in my life, where a huge amount of the execution of the work that I am doing is being driven by AI. That doesn't mean that I am handing over my brain and letting the work happen. I am the strategic director. I am setting the stage. I am putting my thoughts into it. I am very clearly laying out what to happen. And then the AI is executing on that. And then I'm reviewing the outputs and I'm owning the outputs of what's happening. I wanted to take time today to basically walk through what that looks like, because I know that on LinkedIn and Instagram, you see these fancy, descriptions of what people are doing, but it's really hard sometimes to tell, what does that actually mean? What does that look like in practice? And so today, what I want to do is really just walk you through the systems that I have set up, talk about how I work every day, show you what I do and kind of what's behind the scenes that's powering all of that to happen, to try to demystify a little bit of this, and also show, what that means to be working alongside AI in a way that has really helped to accelerate what I'm able to achieve. So let's jump in. Basically, what I want to show you today is the operating system I've built that I say kind of powers my consulting practice. So there's really 4 different components of this, and I want to walk through each of those. So the first that we'll go through is the operating system that basically helps me to plan what I'm doing, to surface the tasks that I need to focus on, and to ensure that I'm giving my focus where it needs to go across all of the different facets of my business that I am responsible for. There is what a lot of people are calling the second brain, the AI second brain. It's essentially a wiki that has been created that takes all of the context of what I believe, what I'm working on, what the research is saying, and brings it together, and basically answers the question, what do I know? So it is all of the context that the AI is drawing from when it's helping me to work. And then I have an intelligence layer that's essentially scraping a huge number of sources every week and pulling apart the ones that are the most useful for me based on my strategy, based on the questions I'm interested in, the things I'm helping my clients to solve. And it summarizes that in a very detailed brief that I'm able to then leverage that also feeds back into that second brain. So these three systems are all very connected, and I'm going to show you that. In addition, I have some standalone automations that I've built that have basically taken the admin work off of my plate completely, to the point where I don't even think about all of the business expenses that I have, or sending invoices to my clients every month. The things that, if you have a business, you probably are letting slide because you just don't have time to think about. Those are basically completely automated now and happening in the background. So let me jump in, and I want to start with what my day looks like. I'll also note that I am going to demo a lot of things, but I obviously have a lot of sensitive information, and I didn't want to show all of that. So what I'm showing here is I had Claude create an HTML mockup of exactly what our conversation looked like. This is literally from this morning, but without any sensitive information, and it's swapped names, and nothing is real client data here. The same with the dashboard I'm going to show you. So I get up every morning. I type in plan my day, and then Claude boots up, gets to work. It starts to pull all of the files that I have connected with it: Gmail, Google Calendar, my granola meeting transcripts, anything else where I have information, my Google task list. It comes up. Today is Thursday. Remember Nora's swimming stuff. I always forget my daughter's swimming suit. She has swimming lessons on Thursday, so it reminds me. And every Monday it tells me to bring Finn's library books. Super helpful. And then it says, I'm pulling your things. Go make your coffee. I literally walk over, make my coffee, and when I come back, I have a list, and it has looked over all of the different email addresses, email accounts that I'm working with, and it will pull out the information. So here's all of the email that you have. It will suggest you should file these into junk. You don't need these. These are potential leads. Here's something that's a general networking call. It goes through all of them, and then it will raise the things that need my attention. So it will summarize certain emails for me and say, here's the suggested action for this email. Add this as a task, do this thing, or should I draft a reply? And it will actually draft a reply for me. I will go in and I will either approve or reject, or say, no, don't do this, do that, file this into this folder instead of junk. And then it goes and does that after I approve that. Now, I do not let Claude send any emails on my behalf. I will have it draft emails for me, and then I will go in and I will edit those, and I will make sure that it's what I want to say, and I will send those out. But 80% of that work has already been done. By the time I actually look at my email, most of the emails have already been filed to the appropriate places, and I have that overview. So this has saved me a tremendous amount of time, especially if you're someone who has multiple email accounts that you're trying to keep track of. The next thing it does is it goes into my meetings. So it will look at the granola transcripts from every meeting I had yesterday. It will give me a summary of them, and it will pull out the key tasks that I have from those meetings, and suggest what I need to do. So confirm that an April invoice was sent to Sarah, loop this person in on this topic, do this financial narrative. It pulls them out. And then similarly, it asks me what I think. And I will say yes, or maybe no, I don't need that task, take it out, or, you forgot this one thing, and then it will update my task list. Then it goes into my Google Voice Capture. So throughout the day, especially when I'm not at my laptop, I will open my phone and I will say, hey, Google, add a task to remind me to get my hair cut next week. And then the next day, it surfaces all of those tasks, because when I talk into Google, it goes to Google Tasks, that goes into my Google Drive, and then there's a skill that knows to read those files, and then it pulls these tasks out for me. And then it will summarize all of the various tasks I have from today that are pending across all of my different clients, across my work. I have personal tasks as well, and it summarizes them all for me. I'll go through and tell it, oh, I actually sent this email yesterday. You can remove that task. I kind of update it, and then we finalize my task list. The way that I like to work is that each day, instead of having like specific action items in my calendar. I like to have chunks of time for deep work and quick wins. So I also ask Claude to go through and look at all of my tasks to suggest what it says thinks are my most urgent kind of deep work tasks that I need to focus on and suggest the quick wins. I will update that as I go, confirm it. And then finally, I have it ask me because I want to be tracking across not only am I delivering for my clients, but am I doing things for myself? So did I exercise yesterday like I said I would? What was my sleep score according to Fitbit? And did I spend quality time with my family? And then it gives me a score on those. And I'll show you what that looks like on my dashboard in a minute. And then finally, it looks at my Google Calendar, pulls out the meetings that I already have planned, and then schedules in the rest of the deep work and the quick win tasks. So this is essentially what my morning looks like every day now. I go through these same tasks, same routines, and Claude is pulling this information and it's storing it for me. This is how I started with my AI executive assistant. And then I would sort of get to work and then I would often forget things and say, well, pull up my task list or, show me my calendar. So then I built out a portfolio dashboard. So this now is basically what happens after I plan my day. I have this dashboard. Again, this is anonymized data, so it's not real data, but this is exactly what my dashboard looks like. That's always open on my second screen. It gives me a high-level overview of the different initiatives, the number of things I'm working on, kind of where they are, what needs my attention. I have all my quick links for things I need. I have the deep work tasks and the quick wins that I just agreed on with Claude. And then my daily plan based on the calendar. And then I have my scorecard. So it looks across all of my clients, and every day it will tell me if I spent enough time based on what I have set out for each client, if I'm sleeping well, if I'm exercising, if I'm putting enough effort on my business development efforts. And then each week, each Friday, I spend time doing a weekly review where we look back at what I've done and it will really analyze, you didn't spend enough time with this client, or you need to put more effort on business development, or you only posted once on LinkedIn, you were trying to get to, and we have this back and forth, and that kind of helps me make sure that I'm balanced across all these different things that I am responsible for. I have all of my tasks. It will flag the urgent or overdue tasks, as well as the entire task list. And as I go throughout my day, I can tick things off when I finish them, or I can talk into Claude Code and tell it, I sent this invoice, I had this call, and then it will auto update on my dashboard. I have a portfolio overview. So this is a list. My actual one is much bigger than this, but this will show me across all of my different clients, what am I working on? What's just in the idea stage? What has been committed? What am I actively working on? What are the ongoing tasks and what have I completed? I can look across specific clients. I can also say, what are all of the initiatives I'm working on, or what are all the builds that I'm working on in different systems that I'm building. What's really cool about this, and I'm going to show you later how there are basically files for every single thing I'm working on that are being created in the background by Claude. But if you click on any given card, and this is actually the real card for this webinar today, I had it pull this actually from my files. It creates a summary of what I'm doing. I did not create any of this myself. What I did was I went back and forth a few weeks ago and said, I'm thinking about a webinar. Let's discuss it. And we discussed the pros and cons and what it might look like. It created on its own this file that lives in my Obsidian app, which I'll show you in a minute. And it auto-populated this. So what is it? Why does it exist? How does this relate to the strategy that I have set? What's my tech stack? So it helped me to decide to use Eventbrite, which you all registered with, use Zoom, which we're on now. I set up a Kit email marketing system for emails to come after this. And so it's documenting everything that I'm doing. It has created a task list. It knows what I've done. It ticks things off as I go. And it's provided a massive amount of detail, all the decisions that I've made. How am I going to be GDPR compliant by having opt-in permissions when people are signing up, in great level of detail. So this is all here. And I didn't do any of this. And the other thing I'll say is the way that I planned this webinar, again, was together with Claude. And so a lot of the work was that we would agree on the different tasks. And you're all going to get a Google survey, by the way, spoiler alert, after this. I'm going to send you an email and there will be a survey link. So I went through with Claude and said, like, here's the things, I want to get a sense for what are people struggling with? What are you grappling with? What's important to you? And so we created the survey questions together. And then I said, please create the survey. And Claude went into my Google Drive and it created a Google survey. While I watched it doing it in my browser, I was able to then go in at the end and review it and edit it a bit. But that was a task that I didn't have to do. Similarly, I'm going to use Kit for email marketing after this. I created the login for my Kit account, and then I worked with Claude to go back and forth on the different emails. I wrote the emails, the different kinds of automations. So, after day 1, after day 3, after day 7, send these emails. And then I passed that off to Claude, and it literally did all of that for me in the background. Every once in a while, it would get stuck and say, can you click this button or can you make this approval? But it did that whole task for me. And so when I say AI is doing work with me and for me, that is what it looks like in my day. Many of you have probably had calls with me lately where I've said, like, all these things are happening in the background while we're talking, and like work is literally getting done while I'm doing other things. And then at the end, I go through and I review it and I edit and I sign off on it because it's my work, but I haven't had to do a lot of it. It really is like having an assistant who is working in the background executing the tasks that I have set. And that has been one of the biggest game changers. And so just very quickly also within here, I have a whole content pipeline around the LinkedIn kind of content that I might be posting and that I've published. In my actual dashboard, it actually links up. I'll show you the metrics that it pulls automatically from LinkedIn for me so I can see how different posts are performing. I have a business development pipeline, which again updates all on its own, where I'm talking to Claude. It can see the emails that are coming in. I tell it this WhatsApp message or this LinkedIn message, and it'll automatically flag something as a business development opportunity. It will create an entry for that. It tells me who the person is, their contact details, the summary, the whole list of our activities, engagement together, and then the next steps. And it automatically flags that next step when it's due. So this morning it said, hey, you were supposed to follow up with this person on the 14th. It flagged it as a task. I followed up with that person. It's been ticked off the box. I mentioned in a post, I actually deleted or canceled my CRM subscription because I don't know if others are like me, but I was never updating it and it was just sitting there and it was not useful. And this is far, far more useful because it just does it for me in the background as it engages with me and the tools that it's connected to. As I mentioned, every week I have a skill that goes into my LinkedIn through my Chrome account, and it will look at all my LinkedIn posts. It pulls out the number of impressions, reactions, the number of saves. It ranks the performance of that post. It also pulls out relevant people, maybe who are engaging with my posts and suggests that I follow up with them. And so this is all, again, linked because it knows who I am. It knows my strategy and what I'm interested in, and it can make these connections for me. So basically, this is it. Some other system stuff. I do a security audit every week to look across my full systems to see if there's any vulnerabilities that I need to pay attention to. And then these are the different kinds of, tasks basically that I have set up that I can draw from at any time. So this is my dashboard. This is essentially what I would call my operating system when I talk about my AI executive assistant. And this has been incredibly helpful to make sure that things are not falling through the cracks in my day to day. The second major build that I've had that forms kind of how I power my business is my Obsidian second brain wiki. So you might have been reading about this. Basically, you can take all of your context, you can put it into a vault, and AI can basically pre-synthesize everything that you've put in there and draw connections and create literally wiki entries about various things that are relevant to you. I did this before. I put a LinkedIn post about this and I can share the links, but there's some GitHub repositories that have all of the skills involved. And I really walked through step by step with Claude and said, hey, I want to do this thing. Can you help me? And it walked me through. And then I created this, which is a graph view of all the different connections of the things that I have put into it. So this includes over 100 LinkedIn posts that I have as Google Docs. It has all of my past publications. It has all the strategy documents I've created. It has now every day, it ingests the summaries from the calls I'm working on. The intelligence layer that I'm going to show you, it is literally, it's growing every single day. And each one of these nodes is a different topic, and it creates a wiki around it. So for example, and if you click on the node, it just opens up one of these pages. I've done a lot with EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So it basically pulled across a huge variety of LinkedIn posts I've written, of other contexts from the course that I took, and other material that it finds in the intelligence every week. And it created this summary for me. So I didn't do any of this, but it's basically, here's what the entrepreneurial operating system is. Here's the components, and here's the things that I have said about it. In post 36, my LinkedIn post number 36, I had this comment, or here's my perspective, how I talk about EOS and adapt it. So this is not just a generic entry. This is my perspective on EOS. Similarly, it created an entry around what a fractional COO model looks like, and then how I practice this. What does it mean to me? And if you go, there's a whole bunch of stuff down at the bottom. It will have backlinks to other related topics that I have written about, or are part of kind of my knowledge base. And so I wrote a lot about my career pivot last year. This was my journey, and so now this is documented. So anytime I ask a question, what is my perspective on X, it will draw from this massive database pool of connected resources. And I have set the system up so that anytime I'm engaging with Claude, it will always go and search here first and pull this perspective. So for example, if I have a client call, it looks at a meeting summary, a transcript, and it says, well, it can pull out things like, you discussed this. That's similar to, this LinkedIn post that you wrote 6 months ago. And that ties into this new report that came out last week from your intelligence survey. Maybe you should think about X, Y, and Z. And so it has been making connections that are literally blowing my mind that I didn't think no human could ever put together. And it all lives here within Obsidian. This is a free tool. It's basically a file storage system. And what you're looking at here are called Markdown files. So these are basically very simple Word files that AI can read, that I can read. I talked about this concept of a shared desk a couple of weeks ago, but it's basically creating context in a way that AI can access so that it can make sense of that. And that, if you look on the left side of the screen here, this is basically the context that AI has about me and that it's drawing from every day. It is constantly updating itself. So every time I am engaging, when I talk about planning this webinar, I'm just doing the work, and in the background, it is making these updates. So it has been tremendously useful to me. And then let's see, the third thing I want to show you is this intelligence layer piece. This one's a bit harder to show, so I want to show a screen so that you can get the feeling for it, and then I'll show you what it actually looks like. But the third thing for me that's part of this system that I've built is basically wanting to have a grasp on what's happening in the field, like we all do, like wanting to know, what is the news that's coming out? What is the research saying? What are other peers in the space talking about, to topics that are relevant to me? So I have defined what I want to know about. What are the big questions I'm asking? I have given it a bunch of the podcasts that I listen to, the Substack feeds that I'm interested in, different newsletters, topics of research publications that I want to stay up to date on, other market research signals. Those are the inputs. And then basically what I've created is a system that spawns 3 agents every Sunday. One that is kind of an expert in technology and AI, one that is more focused on leadership and operations, and then one that's looking at kind of what the field is saying, commentary across. They will pull the relevant files, and then it goes through a scoring agent. So for every piece of, every podcast summary, every newsletter that's come out, it will look at it and give it a score between 0 to 3 to say, how relevant is this to the work that I'm doing? How actionable could this be for my work or my clients? And is this novel? Is it something that hasn't come up in the past weeks? And then I've set it so that anything that scores 2 or higher moves on to the synthesis agent that then takes those pieces of content, summarizes it in great detail, and then analyzes it against my strategy and my positioning and suggests why this is relevant to me. And then I end up with what's almost a 10-page brief on Monday morning when I open my email that basically gives me the lay of the land. Again, I've said it. I like that level of detail. I like to see in great detail what the sources are, and it includes the URL that I can link to see the original source. I could also have it be a one-page brief if I wanted, but I wanted that level of detail. This probably sounds very complicated and crazy, and you're probably wondering what it looks like. So I just want to kind of show you what I see. Actually, what I don't see now, what lives in the background, this is in Claude. So in Claude code, you can also do it in Cowork. There's a routine that runs every week. And this is the full instructions. Read this file. This is the weekly intelligence gathering. Act autonomously. No interaction required. So basically I've tried a number of iterations on this. I initially had very deterministic workflow in N8N set up where I said, go to this site, find this thing, extract this transcript. And what kept happening is that it would get stuck because it wasn't able to pull something out or some of the permissions changed and then the system would just stop working. So I've shifted now and found much better luck by basically creating an agent and giving it the outcome and then saying, figure out how to get this information in the way that you're able to do. And kind of here's the hierarchy of what I'm looking for. So it said, read this file. This is the file that it goes to read in Obsidian. So it will come here and it gets instructions. So it's literally like talking to an assistant. You are running phase 1 of this intelligence sweep. You don't synthesize this. You just pull information basically. And then it says, read the context. So I'm going to show you the context that it's written because Claude has written. I have not written any of this, by the way. This is all something that has been done in the background with me giving my inputs along the way. But it basically says, read everything about Erika so you understand who she is and what she's doing. Launch 3 workers, 3 agents in parallel. And these are the different workers. The first one is looking at podcasts and Substacks, and it kind of tells it, here's the hierarchy of what we want to see, but you need to figure out the best way to do this. And it really just talks it through all of the different steps. Here's the second one looking at research papers. Here's the third one looking at, the funding landscape and so on. It also reads the intelligence profile, which is basically telling it, who am I? And I think this is the super, super critical part. I've talked to a lot of people who say they've set up their AI executive assistants and it's really not working. And you may be hearing the term context engineering. So for a long time, we were talking about prompts and prompt engineering and writing the perfect prompts so that you can get the right outputs from AI. That is shifting now to a term called context engineering, which is really what context does AI have about the problem that you are trying to solve? And the better and the more thorough and detailed that context is, the better the outputs are going to be. So it's less about writing the perfect prompt and making sure that it understands who you are and what you're trying to do. And so this is a file that I built that really goes into great detail about who I am, what I am interested in, what my background is, what are the key questions that I'm trying to answer? These are the things. So then it knows when it's doing this intelligence sweep, like, okay, this is really relevant to Erika because it directly applies to, how do we balance responsible AI with fast AI? And that's something that I'm grappling with right now. It goes through, says, here's how her system is set up. There's different clients, their information. Here's how you should score things, and here's some examples of good scoring. So it's really laying this out. And every time the agents are going and doing this sweep, they're looking at this first. So basically, that is what happens. It runs, it has these instructions, it will create a huge document with the detailed synthesis of each of the news reports or publications that it pulls. And then the second agent will come in and do the synthesis sweep. So similarly, it gets specific instructions, here's who Erika is, now do this analysis. And what I end up with each week is I think this one's a 10-page report. It doesn't look so pretty, but this is the information that I use then to figure out, what should I dig deeper into? What should I be posting about? Sometimes it will even pull data and say, this is directly relevant to this challenge that you're working on with this client. Like, think about how this might be useful. And so it is like supercharging what I am able to do on a weekly basis. And it is feeding all of this context back into the second brain. So that's what I'm saying. This graph is growing every single day because it's getting all of this synthesized information. It's pulling in all of my meetings, it's pulling in all of my notes, and it's really using that to kind of grow over time. So that is essentially what my operating system looks like in practice. And I will say the way that I approach work now, I am constantly talking to Claude, whether it's telling it I've done this thing so that it can mark it off, or I'm working through a challenge. Now I'm going to work on this task, help me think this through, having it do work for me. So for example, last week, I was working with a client where we had budgets from 8 different projects in 8 completely different formats from different donors, as many of us in the development space can appreciate. And I really said, here's a template. I want you to take all of these 8 budgets. I want you to put them in a standard template. I want you to create one Excel file with different tabs for each budget so that we have an apples to apples comparison. And then I want you to break out the number of months for each project, and then map month to month so we can see an organizational budget across each month. And then we pulled in the financial records for actuals. And I said, take these based on the chart of accounts numbers and map them to what the budget said and tell me, where we are in terms of our budget versus actuals per project and as an organization. Anyone who's done any kind of financial work knows that that can take days, if not weeks. And I was able to do it in an afternoon while I was doing other tasks, and it was working in the background. And that is now helping to answer questions for the client I'm working with. These are the kinds of ways that as I'm working, I'm really always thinking, what can AI do for me? If I'm not sure, I will literally ask, can you do this? And often the answer is yes. And I think one thing that many people don't know is there's a Claude Chrome extension. And so if there's not a direct connector to a system where Claude can directly link with it, it can go into your browser in any site, almost any site, and it can do the work for you. And so, this has just been so transformative to me, and I hope it's helpful.
We thank you for watching. We meet every Tuesday between 8 and 9 a.m. Eastern. There is no cost and an option to become a speaker too. Find East Trade Wins on LinkedIn.